Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Maria Herulina. Now I'm the 7th semester of English department. Well guys, I make this video for doing my seminar proposal under the title of An Analysis of Student Vocabulary Learning Style. Okay, now let's go into the first slide. We will talking about chapter 1 or introduction. And the first, I will explain about the background of the study. In learning English, there are three elements of language that are grammar, pronunciation, and vocabulary. And here we will focus on vocabulary. According to Newman and Royer, 2012, page 44, vocabulary is the word that someone must know to communicate effectively, word in speaking and word in listening. From the definition above, it can be said that vocabulary is the basic element of language that someone needs to learning a language, especially for communicate effectively with others. Learning vocabulary is important, but besides that, some students have problems in learning vocabulary, such as lack of vocabulary when speaking, and sometimes some students have difficulties in remember the English vocabulary, so they are often confused with the reason explained by the teacher. From the problem above, the researchers provide or give a solution for using learning style. Learning style is a framework that provides systematic description for implementing learning in order to have students learn in certain goals to be achieved. The next slide is focus of the study. There are subject and object. The subject of the study is the student of 11th grade at SMA 1 Suralaga in academic year 2020 until 2021. And the object of the study is to know the effective of learning style in learning vocabulary. The next is about the purpose of the study. In this research, there are the purpose of the study. The first is to find out the type of student learning style in vocabulary, and the second is to describe how the teacher applies learning style in vocabulary at the 11th grade of SMA 1 Suralaga in academic year 2020-2021. Welcome to chapter 2. In this slide, we will talking about a few of related literature and research questions. The first is I will explain about vocabulary. In this part, I will explain 4 things in vocabulary. The first is the definition of vocabulary. The second is the types of vocabulary. The third is the aspect of vocabulary, and the last is technique of teaching vocabulary. The next slide is about the definition of vocabulary. Vocabulary is one important element of language which is defined by Al-Qahtani 2015, page 21, as the central language teaching and paramount importance to a language learner. From the definition above, we can conclude that learning vocabulary is important. The next is about types of vocabulary. There are 2 types of vocabulary. The first is productive vocabulary and the second is receptive vocabulary. Productive vocabulary is usually used when someone shares ideas when they speak or write. It's usually used in speaking or writing. And receptive vocabulary is set of words for which an individual can assign meaning when reading or listening. The next slide, I will talking about the aspect of vocabulary. There are 5 the aspect of vocabulary. The first is meaning, the second is spelling, the third is pronunciation, the fourth is word class, and the last is word use. The next slide is talking about technique for teaching vocabulary. There are 7 techniques for teaching vocabulary. The first is using realia or real object. The second is showing picture. The third is mime, action and gesture. The fourth is contrast. The fifth is enumeration. The next is explanation, and the last is translation. The next, I will explain about the second one of review of related literature. That is learning style. In this part, I will explain three things in learning style. The first is the definition of learning style. The second is variety of learning style, and the last is factor influence student learning style. The next slide, I will explain about the definition of learning style. According to Trianto 2013, page 14, learning style is a pattern that uses a guide for designing classroom learning or tutorial. It means that learning style is effective, helping teachers recognize the incredibly diverse needs students bring into the classroom. The next is about various of learning style. There are three various of learning style. The first is visual learning style. The second is auditory learning style, and the last is kinesthetic learning style. And the next slide is about factor influence learning style. There are four factor influence learning style. The first is different objective of its subject. The second is different background and abilities of student. The third is the situation and condition in which the learning process takes place, including the types of educational institution and different geographical factors. And the last is the availability of different teaching facilities, both in quantity and quality. The next slide is about the relevant study. There are two relevant studies in this research. The first is the study was conducted by Muhammad Fardi Irfani under the title of An Analysis of Student Difficulties in Vocabulary Mastery at SMP 1 Kampar. And the second study was conducted by Tri Wulandari under the title of Student Problem in Building Up English Vocabulary at Man 1 Pilang Pisau. The next is about the research question. In this research, there are three questions. The first is, what are student learning style in learning vocabulary? The second, why are some students have difficulties in recognizing vocabulary? And the last is, how are students learning vocabulary? Welcome to the next slide. In this slide, we will talking about chapter 3. And in this chapter, we will talking about the research methodology. The first, I will explain about the research design. In this research, the present researchers use a descriptive qualitative method. The next slide is talking about setting of the study and participant of the study. The setting of the study is, the study was conducted from March to April 2021 at SMAN 1 Suralaga, and the participant of the study is the student of 11th grade of SMAN 1 Suralaga in academic year 2020 and 2021. The next slide, I will talking about the data collection. And the first, I will explain about the definition of key term. There are two key terms in this study. The first is vocabulary. According to Zainal, 2012, page 555, vocabulary is a dominant in language equation, whether the language is a second or a foreign language and crucial to the learners. The second is learning style. According to Adi 2013, page 142, learning style is a conceptual framework that describes procedure in organizing learning experience to achieve goals learning. The next is instrument of the study. In this research, the present researcher choose documentation, questionnaire, and interview as an instrument in this study. The next is talking about technique of collecting data. In this research, the researchers use questionnaire as a technique of collecting data. The last is about the data analysis. There are data reduction, data display, conclusion drawing, or verification. Okay, thank you so much and see you next time. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.